Okay, the Canon R5C is an incredible camera with some really enigmatic quirks in it that can just drive you crazy sometimes. And so what I wanted to do is, as I was growing up, my mom used to always say, if you want something, just make sure you ask for it because no one will actually know. So what I wanted to do was to raise my voice up and make a firmware wish list. I wanted to make a wish list about the top 5 firmware updates I would like to see implemented here in the Canon R5C. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about my firmware wish list number 1. And that is very simple. Canon, we have an aperture wheel on the back of our camera. Please let us access this during video mode. It's absolutely ridiculous that you cannot access the aperture wheel in video mode on a Canon R5C. Okay, now my second firmware wish list is pretty straightforward, and it exists in the Canon R5, and I would love to see it in the R5C. And that is this: give us a standby low-res type mode when we're not filming in this camera. I did a whole video on this, I'll put a link up here, but what standby low-res does, essentially, when you're not filming on the camera, it essentially takes the preview screens on the back and previews them down at a lower resolution. The Canon R5C, because it has that beautiful 8K sensor, is always showing that 8K sensor and then even downscaling it down to 4K. Now, I actually did a video showcasing just how much power you can save on this thing just by hitting the media button on the back of the camera. I did a video up there, make sure you check that out, but you can greatly expand it. So that already exists here in the camera. There's a way to hit a button on this camera that can almost triple your battery life. Just give us an option for that when we're not filming, Canon. It's really great. You already have it. We would love to have access to that. Please, Canon, give us that firmware update. All right, now my next firmware wish list update is something that has driven me crazy from the first time I ever picked up this camera, and that is the fact that on the Canon R5C, you have access to Bluetooth and Wi-Fi in photo mode, but when you switch over to video mode, you have to get a $1,000 add-on to access the exact same component that's already hardware built into this camera. Canon, please find some way to allow us to access Bluetooth and Wi-Fi in video mode on the Canon R5C. This would be greatly useful when we're using things like the DJI RS3 Pro for that record button that goes over Bluetooth, or basically if we ever want to use the app or anything else like that. And if you can't do it for some reason, that's cool too. Just let us know why we can't get it. I would love an explanation if you can't do that, because as it stands right now, it's inexplicable and would really love to see that happen in the camera. Now, my fourth firmware wish list is something that I think most of us would like to see, and that is just give us a Canon C-Log2 option in this camera. I mean, it's kind of weird because when you shoot in RAW in this camera, it's coming out as C-Log2. Now, I understand there's some things with the sensor on the Canon R5C that Canon may be a little bit reluctant to do that. And yes, we'll probably get a whole lot of noise on the C-Log2. But I think it's weird to have anything in your cinema line that doesn't have C-Log2. It would be great to have an option, even if it came with a big disclaimer. Canon, really easy to do that with a firmware update. Please go ahead and give us C-Log2 on the Canon R5C. All right, on my last firmware wish list, and this is a big one, this is a pie in the sky, but I absolutely think this could be done and would make this camera such an incredible game-changing camera. And that is simply this: Canon, is there any way you can get us a non-cine video mode that uses the Canon R5's video menu and options, and we don't have to switch over to the cinema menu in the Canon R5C? And the great thing is, all this stuff should be built already into the operating system that exists in the Canon R5. Now, if you remember on the Canon R5, to switch to video mode, I hit the mode button up here, and I could switch over. I didn't have to have a video switch. So that means that technically speaking, the exact same operation can be accessible to us here in the Canon R5C. And why would I want a non-cine video mode on the Canon R5C? Well, it's pretty simple. The Cine mode in the Canon R5C is awesome. I love it. It has so many great things. But there's been times when I wanted some of the non-Cine video modes that were available on the old Canon R5. Maybe we can access the Canon R5 autofocus from the old school that comes on my R5. In this, it'd be nice to have that option. The other thing that I think would be really useful for this is if you're doing a lot of blogging or social media things, sometimes you want to access that IPB light codec that's super compressed, really gets the files down to a really great manageable size, and it's really easy to grade. So it'd just be nice to have access to some of those features in this camera. And having a non-cine video mode and then a professional cine mode, honestly, it just gives us what we want. It lets us completely unlock everything that we loved about the Canon R5 and get all the cake that comes with the R5C too. I realize that last one is probably a little pie in the sky, but I figured I would put it out in the universe and see what we could do. Anyway, guys, I would love to hear what you would like to see as a firmware update here on the Canon R5C. And yeah, go ahead and leave me any notes. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. And yeah, go out there, keep on shooting, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon.